Rights Amendment, and I'm thrilled and absolutely honored to be standing with so many fearless women and men who are joining us today to call for the ratification of the Women's Equality Amendment. And a very special thank you to the extraordinary actress Alyssa Milano for giving us and lending her star voice in support of women and empowering women, and also my colleague in government, Rebecca Seawright, who has authored and passed an Equal Rights Amendment in the Assembly in New York State and is working to pass it in the New York State Senate, and Carol Robles Roman from the ERA Coalition, the co-chair and the CEO. And our wonderful Manhattan Borough President is on her way, and I thank all these advocates that are here today. We are here today because Congress has not been listening to the American people. Polls show that a whopping 94% of Americans, pardon me, I have to speak up. Okay, I'm going to try harder. Okay. We are here today. Can you hear me? You can? We are here today because a whopping 94% of the American people support the Equal Rights Amendment in the Constitution of the United States. And it is an amendment that is long overdue. It's been 242 years after the founders declared in our Constitution that men were equal in our Constitution. The right to equal treatment for women under the law is not protected in the Constitution of the United States. And the current crop of congressional leaders have not only refused to do anything about it, they've refused to even talk about it. Think about it. Women are half the population of the great United States of America, yet the only guarantee that we have in the Constitution is the right to vote. I have reintroduced the Equal Rights Amendment 11 times since I have been in Congress, and all these years, not one committee in either the House or the Senate has held a hearing on it. There has historically been support from Congress members and senators for it, but we have not had one single hearing. So at some point, we have to say, time is up. So we are returning to the traditional role of women, cleaning up the mess, demanding hearings, demanding action to take place on this important right for women. And we're saying to Congress that we are having our own hearing this Wednesday, and Alyssa and Carol and many other advocates are coming there to testify and be part of this hearing. This is an important opportunity for members of Congress to reopen the discussion about rights of every woman in this country and the standard of equality that should be in our Constitution. And at a time when Me Too has become a rallying cry across the nation, we want to turn the slogan of Me Too into the reality of a constitutional amendment that will actually mean protections and support to American women.
Yes.
And at a time when there are outcries at every corner of this country for equal pay, for equal work, for equal opportunity, for equal treatment, and an end to the casual culture of harassment and assault in practically every sector of society. Harassment used to be part of the job. No more. Women are speaking up, they're stopping it, and they're speaking up for equal rights too. And it's time, long past time, to put equality of treatment, fairness in the Constitution for women. So we are here to harness that amazing energy that you can see everywhere that you see across this country into lasting change and empowerment for women. Change for our daughters and their daughters. Change for generations to come. Change that cannot be wiped away with a stroke of a pen. We need to act so that women's progress and women's equality cannot be threatened by every shift of political winds, of who is the majority in the Supreme Court, who's in the White House, who's the leaders in the state legislatures across the country, or in our own Congress. These should be bedrock protections in our Constitution, not left up to the whims of the wind. So we are here to change it. And make no mistake about it, the wind, for the first time in my life, the wind is at our backs. It started with the Women's March in 2017. That same year, Nevada ratified the Equal Rights Amendment after many years. And we need to get to 38. They were 36. And just last week, Illinois, the state where Phyllis Schlafly spread all of her misinformation, they ratified the Equal Rights Amendment. So right now, all across this country, women are making the difference, marching for their rights, speaking up, running for office. They're not only running, they're winning in record numbers. The Me Too and Time's Up movements have captured the conscience of this nation and changed the conversation. The ERA is essential to moving this conversation along. Alyssa, it's time for you to take over. I'm losing my voice.
Water?
I do.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Someone please get Congresswoman Maloney some water.
I'm sorry.
Okay, it's okay. I want to thank you personally for all you have done for an Equal Rights Amendment and for women throughout your very long career. Thank you so much. On behalf of my daughter, I thank you. And I am here today basically because women are not guaranteed equal justice under the law of our Constitution. Really think about that. In 1923, the Equal Rights Amendment was first proposed by the National Women's Political Party, and it stated that the amendment was to provide for the legal equality of the sexes and prohibit discrimination on the basis of sex. And now it is almost 100 years later, and we are still fighting the same fight of this belief that equal means equal. Lack of recognition of women's equality perpetuates the belief that women are less than, which leads to unequal treatment, abuses of power, sexual harassment, misconduct, and assault. The ERA is also an economic issue. It has been proven that when women earn more, the economy thrives. It helps stimulate the economy. And the ERA would help ensure equal pay for women. The ERA would also provide legal protection against rolling back the advances in women's rights that have been achieved since the mid-20th century. And by the way, right now, discriminatory laws are being enacted throughout the United States of America. The ERA would put women on equal footing, particularly in the areas where women have historically been treated as second-class citizens, including in cases of public education, divorce, child custody, domestic violence and sexual harassment in the workplace, and assault. An ERA will also eliminate sexual discrimination in the armed services and ensure that government programs do not have a negative impact on women. And most broadly and importantly, an Equal Rights Amendment will give all citizens of the United States the opportunity to reach their full potential. So, I'm going to end this with a chant. What do we want?
Equal rights!
When do we want it?
Now!
What do we want?
Equal rights!
When do we want it?
Now!
Now I'd like to introduce the co-president and CEO of the ERA Coalition, Carol Robles Roman. she here?
Yes, Carol.
Right here.
Thank you. Great victory. Great, thank you.
Now you think I'm going to be able to top that? The answer is no. But I'm going to introduce myself, Carol Robles Roman, and I proudly represent member organizations from around these United States dedicated to one thing: constitutional equality for women. Some of these organizations have been doing this for decades. We like to call ourselves a lean, mean gender justice machine, and this is our #1 gender justice issue. We are so grateful to Congresswoman Maloney for leading us, for gathering us, for Alyssa Milano, to be able to show to everybody this is an intergenerational, this is an interracial, men and women. I have men on my board. Where's Ron Baldwin? #1 board member of the ERA Coalition. Everybody should be involved in the movement for women's rights, for women's equality, for putting women in the United States Constitution now, not tomorrow, not next week. We know that this is something that is not intuitive, so we are going to make it intuitive. We have an equality roadshow that is nonstop. We marched in January with the Girl Scouts, ERA Girl Scouts, I'll have you know. We're here today, and we're going to be in Washington, D.C. with Alyssa Milano with bells on to let everybody know, to make sure that every legislator in this country understands what is happening. This is a great country, make no mistake about it. But I, as the former president of the oldest women's civil rights organization in the country, where I litigated, I educated, and I advocated on behalf of women, I can tell you that the issue of sexual harassment and discrimination is alive and well in this country. And I could say it until the cows came home, and I filed some badass lawsuits, but it wasn't until the purity of Me Too came onto the stage that our messages collided. So we are riding this momentum. The pendulum of equality is now swinging in our way big time. So we're asking everybody to be watching us on Wednesday, to be calling every one of your Congress people. Now, if it's her, we already know where she stands. This is a bipartisan issue. Make no mistake about it. And to the extent that that has been mischaracterized and mismessaged, we're here to correct that. And whatever you need that information to be provided. Women's rights are Democrat, they're Republican, and they are for everybody. And so next time we will be with our little ERA Girl Scouts, and they'll be wearing badges, and there'll be Republican Girl Scouts and Democratic Girl Scouts, because we're going to pass this law, but we need everybody to understand the legislative process. If your legislator is not supporting the ERA, is not supporting women in the Constitution, he or she is not supporting women's rights. Period. Hard stop.
What do we want?
ERA!
When do we want it?
Now! Now it is my pleasure to introduce Assemblymember Rebecca Seawright, who is an ERA advocate par excellence.
Thank you. Thank you, Carol. Thank you. Good morning. I'm Rebecca Seawright. I represent the Upper East Side and Roosevelt Island in the State Assembly. I'm honored to be here today with America's Congresswoman, Carolyn Maloney. There's no bigger champion than Congresswoman Maloney fighting for the ERA. She is a relentless warrior for change. But let me share a brief sequence of history with you. 100 years ago, almost to this day, on June 14th, 1919, the 19th Amendment providing women the right to vote was passed. Shortly after that, beginning in 1923, the Equal Rights Amendment was introduced. In 1940, both the Democrat and Republican parties put the ERA in their platforms. It took until 1972, but by then, a proposed amendment was sent by Congress to the states for ratification. A few weeks ago, Illinois voted to ratify the amendment. That means we're one short state of ratification. And now Congresswoman Maloney is holding hearings to advocate for its passage. Let's make this the year that it happens. On March 13th of this year, I passed in the New York State Assembly the Equal Rights Amendment to add it to our New York State Constitution.
Bravo!
The Equal Rights Amendment will ensure that women are permanently protected from sex-based discrimination. The time to act is now, 100 years after women secured the right to vote via the 19th Amendment. Let's close the gap and add the Equal Rights Amendment to our Constitution. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank all of the women and like-minded men who are here in support of the Equal Rights Amendment, which will help usher in a new chapter of equality in America where equal will truly mean equal. Thank you all for coming. Are there any questions? Would you identify your news source? Well, that's true. There was a tremendous push in the 70s where we passed it and 35 states ratified it. Many people thought that the bill had passed, but it didn't. And so 2 other states have ratified it, and we hope that a third will ratify it and we can move forward with this cause of ours. But in the meantime, there are important laws that have passed that cannot be enforced or are often not enforced. And the only way that you can enforce the laws of this land is to make it the laws of the land. Part of the Constitution is just that simple. So if you want equal pay for equal work, let's pass the Equal Rights Amendment, which would make that the law of the land and therefore enforceable. It's that simple. But most of our time in Congress, we spend so much time, many women in the Women's Caucus, Democrats and Republicans, fighting to hold on to what we already passed. There's efforts to repeal it by executive order, often by Supreme Court cases, regular court cases, by executive orders that roll back aspects. Only by having a bedrock guarantee in the Constitution are our rights against discrimination and equality of opportunity protected. And as Alyssa said, this is important to the economic strength of our country. We used to be competing with people in the classroom with us. Now we're competing with the world, and we need to compete with everyone with the best of their abilities to be able to work to the fullest of their potential. It's in everyone's interest. And when you discriminate against a woman, you discriminate against her spouse and her children. Thank you. Any other questions? Oh, good. Nice to see you.
If the Constitution is for the protection of everybody, why is it important to make specific an amendment for women?
Because women are not in the Constitution now, with the exception of the right to vote. The document, our Constitution, protects our rights, and it 242 years ago proclaimed that all men were equal. Women were left out. And the only time we've been in the Constitution was for the right to vote. As Justice Scalia he said, I'm a strict constructionist. If a discrimination case came to me, no matter how I felt, I would rule against women because they're not in the Constitution. Let's correct that. We're half the population in this great country. We're half the workforce. We're half the spirit of this great country. But too often our rights and our protections are not in the Constitution. We can change that. Let's change that in this coming election. There is wind at our back. More women are running for office than ever in the history of this country. They're not only running for office, but they're winning. I do want to mention that we've been joined by our celebrated legendary borough president and our wonderful council member, and they're both here, and we need to do an ERA amendment in the city council too. Okay, any other questions? Yeah.
Are there any cases that you're currently supporting?
Listen, if you're not a member of the press, you're not we're only talking to the members of the press. They have a lot of they're very busy. Thank you for being here. Are there any other questions? We'd be glad to answer to members of the press only on this issue. We have 75 women's organizations across the country that are scoring on this. We wish that every woman would score on this. If women would decide how to vote based on whether someone supported their rights and their sisters and their children's rights, it would pass. To me, it's an American scandal that it has not passed and ratified until now. And I will tell you, I do not understand the pushback on it. To me, equality of rights, fairness of treatment should be like breathing air, like a cup of coffee in the morning. Yet it has been the most difficult issue on which I have worked since I've been in Congress. I'm telling you the truth. Any other questions on this issue only? Thank you so very much. Have a dynamic day, and on to passage. Thank you. Come on up here, Alyssa.
Alyssa. Hi, I'm Juliana from act.tv.
We need 1 second. Sorry.
Carolyn Maloney wants a photo with you.
Yes, of course. I have to take one picture.
Yeah, I want a nice group photo.
Oh, let me ask Gail if she'll do it. They're going to take a picture. And then they're going to take like a group photo.
Oh, no.
Are they live still?
Ron invited me.
Oh, okay. All right. So you're watching ACT TV. I'm Juliana Forlano. You're watching the tail end of a press conference where Representative Maloney from New York, Alyssa Milano, Gail Brewer, the Manhattan Borough President, all got together to discuss the ERA and the future potential passage of the ERA. On Wednesday, I think we're going to...
1 second. Oh, thank you, Sarah.
You're seeing the tail end of the presser. We are in front of the Fearless Girl statue, which is right in front of the bull of Wall Street. And they are taking photos of the speakers. As you'll see, there's Alyssa Milano, actress and activist, Representative Maloney from the ERA Coalition call for ratification of the Equal Rights Amendment. Again, you're watching ACT TV. I'm Juliana Forlano. We are covering the a call for ratification of the ERA here in New York State. Well, it's a national ratification, but we are in New York State. Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney from New York. She's the House sponsor of the ERA. She was joined by activist and actress Alyssa Milano, the ERA Coalition, the women's rights advocates, to call for ratification of the ERA. The ERA would guarantee, of course, constitutional rights apply equally to all persons, regardless of their sex. Currently, the right to vote is the only right guaranteed to women in the Constitution. Although the ERA passed Congress in 1972, it was only ratified by 35 of 38 states required to amend that Constitution. Representative Maloney reintroduced the ERA 11 times, and in 2017, Nevada ratified the ERA, and just last week, Illinois became the 37th state to ratify. So basically, the United States only needs one more state to ratify in order to have an equal rights amendment for women in this country. Again, you're watching ACT TV. I'm Juliana Forlano. And we are in downtown Manhattan, right near the bull statue, but right in front of the Fearless Girl statue, covering a call to ratify the ERA. With the Me Too movement currently in full force, and the upswing of women fighting for their rights, and also with Illinois ratifying that 37th state, we are closer than ever to being able to have an ERA. We're going to try to get some interviews with some of the speakers, which of course they're being...
I'm just going to have to wait.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. Do you want to get... Gail, can we interview you? Come on up. Yeah, you don't want to hit the statue. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We're Act TV.
Yep, okay.
Okay. I'm Juliana Forlano. We're here with Gail Brewer, Manhattan Borough President. Thank you so much for the interview, and thanks for being part of this.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Can you talk a little bit about what it means for New York State to be at the forefront of calling for the ERA?
Well, first of all, we don't like that Illinois beat us just recently. That's upsetting, very upsetting. What it means for us, and obviously there's a big push because we have an example. We have a president who is not supportive of the same issues that we are. When we had the women's agenda, it was interesting. The number 10, which was a pro-choice amendment to the state constitution, did not pass. And that was an example of why we need the ERA. Because we often have a situation where there could be something happening on the federal level like it is now, and we're not codified as an equal rights amendment in the state of New York, not to mention nationally.
Do you believe that Governor Cuomo could have done more in order to pass this?
I can say that everybody could do more. We obviously had a Senate that's Republican. That's probably a challenge, particularly on pro-choice issues, equal rights for women's issues. But we really have a situation now in 2018 where the time for ERA is clear.
What do you think that voters can do in this state?
They need to contact their elected officials, Democrat and Republican, and say that women need to be in the Constitution of the state of New York.
Why is this taking so long?
I don't know. I can say, I know Phyllis Schlafly, that's how far I go back, 1972. I remember Phyllis Schlafly, she said, if we have equal rights for women, we might have gay marriage. Hello?
Well, we have gay marriage already, so we might as well get the rights.
And that's a good thing. So I'm just saying, she's gone. We are now in a Me Too, Time's Up situation because we have such a horrible federal president, and now this is the time to pass the ERA.
Do you believe if Hillary Clinton had become president that the push for passing the ERA would happen? Would it become a secondary issue? Or would she have just signed it or whatever, pushed it herself?
Well, don't forget, we have a Republican Congress and Senate. So that would have to be part of the process. So I don't know. Don't forget, President Obama was supportive, but he had a Republican House and Senate.
So on one level, Trump's heinousness is causing us all to come out from the woodwork, and it's actually maybe helpful.
On many issues, not just the ERA. There are many issues, immigration and so on. We're all fighting the same fight, and the good news is we're all doing this together.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the interview, and thanks for being part of this. This is Manhattan Borough President Gail Brewer. You're watching ACT TV. We're going to try to get... Well, is there any other thing you'd want to say to people who are watching?
Well, I think that this is an exciting time. We obviously have not just Time's Up and Me Too, but we're fighting together, as I said, on immigration. We're fighting together on food stamps and SNAP. The list is very long. Just our rights in general.
How important do you think it is for people to, I'm sorry to cut you off, how important do you think it is for people to come out in the streets to events like this one?
Well, I've been at a lot of demonstrations in the since November 2016, and I think others have. We in local government have a responsibility, though. We need to make sure that all of this energy continues, both on the local issues as well as the national issues. And we've been trying to do that through civic associations, community boards, hospital boards, youth councils, and so on. Because, there's a lot of activism. ERA, better candidates for office. We understand there are like 40 or 32,000 women running for office in 2018 around the country. That's all good, but it has to continue. I've been in this game a long time, and I want to make sure that energy is sustained. That's really important.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're watching ACT TV. We are here in downtown Manhattan in front of the Fearless Girl statue. What a lovely statue she is.
I absolutely love her.
She's beautiful, and it's a great place to have a press conference. We are following Alyssa Milano around. She is getting a lot of requests for press coverage, as you can see, and we're going to try to squeeze in there.
Why did you want to be a part of this, and why are you here today?
I just feel that since this administration was put in office, we're watching our women's rights potentially being rolled back. And through that came the perfect storm for the Me Too movement. And we've seen women stand up and support each other and come forward and say, time's up, we're not going to put up with this anymore. And the Equal Rights Amendment, if not now, then when? Women are together. We have formed a bond that is unstoppable, and I don't think we're going to stop until we get the Equal Rights Amendment passed, and that equal means equal.
You have a daughter, how old is your daughter?
3 years old, and I have a 6-year-old son.
Okay.
So I'm raising.
She's the future. Yeah.
She's the future, and I look at her, and so is he, exactly. And I look at both of them, and hopefully instill correct lessons within the household in the little ways that we all do in parenting, or that we can hope to do. But my wish for her is that she's surprised when I tell her that, that when she was 3 years old, women didn't have the same rights as men. I hope that she's like, what? That's crazy, because it is crazy. It's absurd. I mean, I see about 8 women right now. None of you are protected under the Constitution. Not one of you.
Thank you very much.
Above and beyond this today, are you going to continue the lobby, or what are you going to continue?
Yes, we have a shadow hearing on Wednesday where I'll be a witness and testifying, hopefully in front of as many congresswomen and men as possible as we can get in the room. And my activism is never ending, and I will always fight for women's rights and for what I believe to be the betterment of democracy and humanity.
How did you find your outrage on this particular issue?
I was sexually assaulted a bunch of times. That'll do it.
While working in Hollywood?
Not only working in Hollywood, but just, from being a woman. I think when you're not protected under the Constitution, you're considered less than, and it breeds a societal viewpoint on that women can be taken advantage of, and there are abuses of power that can take place. And I don't think that would be the case if we were protected under the Constitution.
First of all, thank you for using your platform to forward this movement. How is it? Has there been any pushback from other people that who are in the same entertainment industry? We always hear about the women who are at the head of this movement. Are there any sort of undercurrents that don't want to be involved that you've seen?
I don't think so. I think this is a pretty universal issue, and I think it's bipartisan. I think that this Republican women want this just as bad as Democratic women. I think that, again, the fact that women are not protected under the Constitution is the most absurd thing I've ever heard. It's 2018, and the only way to guarantee that our rights aren't rolled back is to pass an ERA. The only way to guarantee equal pay for equal work is to pass the ERA. And the only guarantee that my daughter won't have to deal with the sexual harassment and assault that I had to deal with in my life is to pass the ERA.
What do you think is the importance of people coming out to events like this?
Well, I mean, I think mainly the fact that most people don't know that women aren't covered under the Constitution and that we have no protection. Just to raise awareness is the most important thing. And I thank all of you from the bottom of my heart for coming out and seeing that this is an issue worth actually discussing, worth giving your platform to as well. I know right now, as journalists, you're all in a very precarious situation, and some things might not seem worth fighting for, but this, I believe, is an issue for us all. And I thank all the journalists that are giving this airtime and really compassionately supporting the cause.
On Wednesday, you're going to be in Washington, D.C. What's going to be happening there?
We're doing a shadow hearing put together by Congresswoman Maloney. And basically, I'm going to be a witness and testifying about why we need the Equal Rights Amendment to pass.
That's very brave of you.
Is it?
I think so. To share your story, although so many people are sharing it too, that I'm sure you feel buoyed by all of that.
I'm excited, and I feel honored for the opportunity, and my parents are flying to Washington to see me speak, and I hope to, in 10 years from now, be able to show my daughter some YouTube video and again, have her think that it's ridiculous that there was some point in history that women were not covered and protected under the Constitution.
I grew up in the 80s, not to monopolize you. I grew up in the 80s.
I recognize the fabulous hair. I bet
so true. I
had amazing 80s hair.
Yes, the whole hairspray wave thing. I grew up watching you, and, that was later. But I was born after the 1982, And I was born into thinking that we all had equal rights because of sort of the culture, and the feminist movement sort of wasn't as prominent as it was the decade before that. It is kind of shocking to people in me and my generation that we don't have the same rights, and I think...
I get it. And I also think it's the same way that what we're fighting for right now under this administration is shocking to millennials, because we had Obama, who was so progressive, and the millennials were just like, we don't have to fight for anything. We're good. Everybody's, going to be taken care of.
It's like shock under Trump.
Yeah, and I think the good news is it's really ignited everyone's... because I believe everyone is I believe everyone is an activist at heart. I believe that everyone
especially mothers
has a cause to fight for. We're all advocates for something that we love, whether it be animals or... So I think the one good thing that has come under this administration is everyone's ability to come together and really that activist inside of them either be born or reborn. And I think that we've all found kind of comfort in each other that has like-minded behavior and instincts. So if there's any hope, and that's what I feel right now is the most important time for the Equal Rights Amendment. I think, the most important policy change happens from struggle, and I think that women are watching our rights be systematically rolled back in the last year, even on a state level. And so I feel that we will fight together to make this happen. I really believe that.
Thank you so much.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. You're watching ACT TV. I'm Juliana Forlano. We've been speaking with Alyssa Milano, and we spoke with Gail Brewer, the Manhattan Borough president. I'm not sure if we can still get Representative Maloney or if she is gone. We're scanning the crowd for her. I think she may have taken off. But again, you're watching ACT TV's live coverage of the ERA event that happened in front of the Fearless Girl statue to raise awareness about the potential passage of the ERA now that the 37th state has ratified the ERA. Oh, well, we we got her already. Oh, thank you, though. Yeah, someone was pointing out, oh, no, Maloney. Yeah, let's see if we can go get her. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to go see if we can speak to Congressperson Maloney. Let's see. Oh, hi. Oh, so sorry. Hi.
This is the assembly member.
Oh, yes.
Rebecca.
Uh-oh.
Rebecca C. Prime sponsored the ERA amendment in the New York State to amend the New York State Constitution.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So she's an elected. Rebecca.
This is also Rebecca. Rebecca.
This is
Juliana Forlano. I'm from ACT TV.
They have the Facebook. They do a live feed on Facebook.
We did the whole thing live, and we cover all kinds of marches, and we cover protest movements because they need more coverage. I don't have a card, but I will. I think I can give you.
And I have her number.
Yes.
And
yes.
I gave you this.
And I got the card, but thank you very much for appearing at this event. And
thank you for covering it. I'm Rebecca C. Wright, represent parts of the Upper East Side and Roosevelt Island in the New York State Legislature. And on March 13th, I was the lead sponsor of a bill to add the Equal Rights Amendment to the New York State Constitution. It still does not exist in the New York State or, of course, the federal Constitution, and that's something that we need to change.
What do you think the importance of, for our viewers, is to have the states have it ratified as well as the federal government? I mean, it seems obvious, but I think
New York is a progressive state, and we're a leader on progressive issues, and not to have it in the New York State Constitution is just outrageous. It's unheard of. Women represent now over half the workforce, over half the population, and not to be recognized in the state constitution as well as the federal constitution is really outrageous.
Can you talk about what has led in the New York State government to that not being ratified? I know we don't have as many women representatives as maybe we could soon.
Well, I think we certainly need to increase the number of women in public office, both in the city council, the city government, the state government, and the federal government. And I see it in Albany every week when I'm up there for session. Legislative business that we're so far outnumbered by men, and women bring a unique perspective. Like we took the tax off the tampon and had the tampon bill. Condoms are not taxed. They're considered a luxury item, so why should we tax something that's a medical necessity as a tampon? So also the NBA cheerleaders were not granted the same rights as football players, and cheerleaders are a professional dance team. So why shouldn't they be given the same rights as the male athletes? And so it takes women, it's been seen traditionally, to bring these type of issues to the floor of both the House and the Congress, the state legislature.
Are the men always shocked when you say tampons on the House floor? Are they taken aback?
It's very interesting. I think they're afraid to go home to their mothers, their daughters, their sisters.
They should be.
And vote against this kind of legislation. So
actually, that's really great, because you can do more than just join the Senate to do this kind of work, especially if you're married to a male congressperson or a state representative.
Right. Absolutely. So this is the year that we're going to make a lot of changes, and no one's been a stronger warrior for change than Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney. I'm honored to have her represent me in the Congress. She's introduced the ERA amendment to add it to the federal Constitution every single year that she's been in Congress, and was a big reason that I introduced it into the state legislature, and was proud to have the leadership support and pass it on March 13th. So we hope that this now will go before the people. It has to pass 2 successive state legislature calendars, and then it can be on the ballot for the people to vote in a referendum.
If we happen to have Cynthia Nixon win the governorship of New York State, what difference do you think it would make to have a female as the head of this particular state on this issue and others?
I think we have a lot of great women in office right now, like our borough president, who I see standing over there, Gail Brewer.
Yes, we spoke to her.
And what we need to do is impress upon all women to come together on this important issue of the Equal Rights Amendment and stand up for women, especially with the Me Too movement and Rise Up. And we see record numbers of women running for political office all around the country. And so we need to call our legislators and insist that they support something as basic as the Equal Rights Amendment.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're watching Act TV's coverage of the ERA press. There was it's not exactly a protest what we're doing here, but there was a press conference announcing that on Wednesday there's going to be a hearing, or a shadow hearing, in D.C. about the ERA, which has not passed yet. This has been sparked by the Me Too movement, but also the fact that 2 states over the past 2 years have just ratified in their state constitutions the ERA. And New York State, as you just heard our representative say, is not one of those states. So we're going to try to... Did we miss our Representative Maloney opportunity? She may be here, or she may be gone. It's hard to interview all of the speakers. There she is. Let's go get her. Act TV on your side.
Yeah.
Chasing down representatives in order to interview them.
Yeah, absolutely.
The largest sector of poverty, because it compounds. If you're not paid equally, then your pension is lower, your 401k is lower, your savings is lower, your money is lower. It's not fair. It's just not fair.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Who are you with?
New York Newsday. I used to be at the Daily News. That's probably why you're...
I like your questions. Do you have a card?
Yeah, I'll dig one up and I'll...
Okay.
Hi, Representative Maloney. Can I ask you a question or two? I'm Juliana Forlano from Act TV. We cover all of the progressive marches around the city and around the country. So what do you think is the importance of people coming out to movements or marches like the Women's March and events like this?
Well, I think it builds energy and activity and support, and we're building on that. And that's so very, very important. And
how has it been for you personally to champion this through the last number of years, and to see some movement and then to see periods of no movement?
It's been.
Do you become disheartened, or do you become?
I become more determined. When I went to Congress, I had a list of 10 things I wanted to accomplish. I've accomplished all of them except for the Equal Rights Amendment. I built the 2nd Avenue subway. It wasn't built with the help of others, but I secured the federal money. It hadn't They talked about it for 100 years.
So you can build a subway faster than you can get women's rights.
I passed a bill on a credit card bill of rights that, according to studies, say that it saves you $12 billion, as in B, a year, consumers. But I can't pass women's rights. They cost nothing, really. And
what do you think is the idea? Is it ideology? Is it economics that stops Republicans from voting on this?
I think that you should ask them.
Okay, I will.
I think you should ask them. And I think you should start with New York. Every Republican member of Congress, write or call them and ask them, where do you stand on equal rights? How come you're not a co-sponsor of the Maloney bill? Get them to answer. What is their rationale? To me, equality is like having a glass of water in the morning. It's natural as breathing. But it has monumental consequences, particularly economically, because if you can fairly discriminate, then you can charge more for women's health care. You can charge more for everything that women are doing. I'm doing a report now on what I call the pink tax. And like arguments, items such as toys, if they're pink, they're 5 times more expensive. Don't ask me why, but it's not right and it's wrong. And it compounds to women being the largest segment in the population living in poverty. It's just absolutely wrong. And
what would you ask people at home watching to do beyond contacting their congresspeople?
I would say if they would make this part of the test of who they vote for, women could change this in this midterm election. If you just voted out people who won't support it and voted in people who will support it, then that's a change. I would go to every member of Congress, and if they're opposed to it, find out if their opponent is for it. And if their opponent is for it, then work very hard to get them elected so that we can finally pass that. It fundamentally comes down to elections. And it fundamentally comes down to, if you're in the Constitution, we're protected. Our rights are protected. People say equal pay for equal work. Well, the laws aren't even enforceable unless it is a dead rock bottom part of our Constitution,
What role do you think the anti-abortion movement has had in stopping the ERA from moving forward?
I think they have played a major role. And the ERA has nothing to do with abortion. That is already legal in a Supreme Court case. But they wrap it up into what is an emotional issue to many people. And what the Republicans do, or the hard right does in Congress, if they want to kill something, then they put an abortion amendment on it, or they put a gun amendment on it, or they do something that even my credit card bill of rights that saves people $12 billion a year, I'm very pro-gun safety. So they attach to it an anti-gun safety measure, thinking that would get me and others to back off, but the bill was so important, I still supported it. But that's the type of games that they play.
Ugh. Well, thank you so much for standing up.
Job.
No, it's not an easy job.
We stand together and we work together. We can make it happen. We really can. And I want to know how to get in touch with you so that
I'll give you I'll give your press person or you my contact information. I will do. Okay. Yes. You're watching ACT TV. I'm Juliana Forlano. We'll be back in just a quick minute. We've been speaking with Representative Maloney from New York. We're very proud to have her as our representative. I'm going to give you my contact information. Let me get that to you.